Hello there. Today I'll deliberate on certain changes in the outcomes and approaches or the strategies of integration of information technology in the world of English language teaching. As we have witnessed and we are witnessing with the rapid advancement, the technological integration and educational tools being applied, we see that all methodologies aren't really effective in catering to the dire needs of our English language learners, and even our responsibilities as a teacher is increasing, not only in its altogether revolutionary approaches, but also the way instructions are being imparted. And teachers' role is even more multi-pronged, and it's evolving. And in the 21st century classroom, we are going to add to certain roles that we are already playing. There have been multiple roles as also as a facilitator or student learning, and create a productive class environment. But what is paramount and imperative on the part of the teaching community is that we have to keep abreast of the latest acquisitions, the latest incorporation changes in the classroom scenario, whether it's online and offline, face-to-face, or a kind of hybrid learning, which is catching up very quickly. And our classroom can remain productive and effective if we continue to harp on those traditional ways of imparting our lessons. Now, what are actually those 21st century skills we're talking about? Obviously, it's more of a collaborative, not content-based or project-based in the traditional sense. In fact, we need to incorporate more higher order thinking skills. And it's not just restrictive to only communicative skills, but also how communication takes place in the real world with varying challenges, meeting the deadlines. And we teachers cannot remain in isolation, because this revolutionary changes in technology and integration of all those tools and interdisciplinary approaches, like language cannot be taught in isolation. There are so many other things. So our role is being redefined as a co-teach or team teach or a collaborator or with other teachers in other disciplines as well. So institutional support may come in the form of just according the right environment, but part of the process involves teachers more professional developmental acumen and implementation of the new ways of teaching and assessing. I mean, changes are coming in not only imparting lessons, but also in the assessment tools, because most of the assessment tools include online self-testing, self-assessment, and also instant feedback. No more the delayed feedback or the kind of positive feedback. We're talking about instantaneous feedback and even the results that these learners happen to notice, and he has to assimilate the new things. So this rapid development, interaction, information technology is altering all modes of all facets and all aspects of teaching and learning that take place in either the real or virtual environment. So the community competence and awareness, the intercultural competence is also the need of the hour. The perception of what used to be an effective English teacher earlier, of only natives and non-natives just vying to attain the covetous spot of those natives. In fact, non-native teachers are outnumbering the natives, and nest and in the TESOL field, we have to recognize that we are having world Englishes, no more the English spoken or used in only the English speaking world. So well qualified teachers, whether they're natives or non-natives, would be fitting in the frame, and the dimension of the community competence have to be expanded. And in fact, it's more about multi-competence. It's not just as Cook mentioned in 2012, and Byron mentioned in 1997 that the importance of intercultural communication, community competence holds more importance than just transaction interaction communication. So interculturally community competence need to be not just restrictive to the area you live in, I mean local. It has to be trust, and it has to be international, because you find people migrating huge numbers, and Japanese in the USA and Chinese in England and Indians and Malaysians and all of the world. There is influx, and there is moving from one place to the other because of the paramount importance of English being as a lingua franca and overusage in the internet. There's a need, and moreover, it's our global economic system that necessitates that we visit and travel all over the world for one reason or other, whether it's entrepreneurs or business executives or job seekers or migrants or those who like to improve their economic conditions or job changes. And these bring about lots of change in the teaching content, curriculum design and assessment. So there's a growing importance of not only the change in the content, but also trying to incorporate interdisciplinary knowledge. So there has to be an increased focus on CBLI or CLIL or SIOP or ESPM, is English for special purposes. So more and more programs require English teachers to use cross-curricular or cross-disciplinary content. And there are programs which are really short-term, with shorter objectives, and learners that can't afford to spend so much time, energy, or money on going for long-term courses. So the teaching material has to be tailored. Curriculum designers have to look at the contents, and the emphasis has to be both in the language and the content knowledge. So the learning outcomes, the learning standards are becoming broader, more encompassing, in more not only the language skills, but the end thing, the watchword these days, critical thinking, problem solving. Because we'll be living in the algorithms of AI assisted tools, and everywhere we have certain programmings and learning strategies, and machine learning is no more the things of the distant future. It's already in. And in the real world, and a virtual world, this distinction is being almost overlapped, or the occurrences, I mean similar occurrences that we are living in a world of almost virtual when it comes to learning and attending the class online, even certification, acquiring degrees and all. Gone are days when you used to abhor or invalidate the degrees or certifications or the knowledge gained through online teaching. So distance learning is no more an alternative mode of the gaining education knowledge. In fact, it's becoming mainstream knowledge seeking tool. So and most of the assessment tools are actually available on the online platform these days, whether distance learning, or it's the question perception. We are using question perception in our own context. So whether it's writing abilities, or whether the recording of your audio sections for assessment, and all these things are online, real terms and real assessment with the instantaneous results or feedback. I mean, results they're not always accompanied with the right kind of constructive feedback that we human teachers can offer with the kind of empathetic interactions and with the kind of face-to-face exchanges, transactions, interactions, exchanges. But the fact remains that all those tools are offering lots of feedback assessment and tools. And so I could call it the post-methods era in the 21st century. And so many, the focus teaching is on basically on eclecticism. I mean, it's like you have to choose from all available resources and tools which works best for you. Obviously, we have a larger ranges of facilities, and Eclecticism involves using a variety of language learning activities, not just restricted to the grammar and translation teaching methods of the olden times. It's not just the mechanical errors finding or learning how to get the right kind of sentence structures and all. It's all about different characteristics of the languages, and all our underlying assumptions of the yesterdays are really becoming outdated. Even the perception about that the L1 interference and it impedes the progress and acquisition of the competence among learners, and an L2 pedagogy, and they use different accents in the listening activities. So we are accepting the accents and the varying intonations and all kinds of whether they're heavy or light accents, and so you are better known by the kind of accent you come from, geographical boundaries and social cultural aspects, and they're not being looked down upon or being rejected. Or so the native teachers have to train their ears sometimes to get to the nitty-gritties and the phonemes and the right kind of transactions or kind of messages. So it's the other way around. We are, non-native teachers or non-native learners, they far outnumber. They are in the outer circle, but they are getting into the inner circle, and they're ever expanding in number and in the phenomenal growth of the kind of print or textbooks or curriculum designing, or so more and more spaces are being created by non-natives than the natives. And in fact, the future lies in how to accommodate this ever expanding circles of the non-native learners, which might severely outnumber like billion and billion of new language learners, language users are being added. And so we have varieties of Englishes worldwide gradually being accepted, and not only being accepted, but also forming a part of the mainstream English. So it's no more the domains of the American English or British English. Is also like South African Englishes and Indian Englishes, and so we have Englishes, we have Indianish, we have Indonesians, and they're also a big force because being a huge country and having a very large, it is a gigantic number of users of English. So what I mean to say that there would be cataclysmic changes in not only the approaches in the curriculum designing, in the testing systems, in the acceptance of the norms of teaching and learning. And the last 20 years, and the ELT field has had dramatic changes in view of the role of the English language teaching or English educators, and we are increasingly being aware that many language learners know more than 2 languages. So it's not like multilingual or just that we have translinguals, we have across the boundaries, and we cannot restrict the English speakers in broader, only broad categories. Though there are subcategories, and it's no more simply a second language anymore. Actually, even the acronyms of fields of English language teaching, like from TESOL, teaching English to second language learners, has become to TESOL, like teaching English to speakers of other languages. So other languages might include hundreds and hundreds of other languages, and Western English is now becoming English as an international language because it's becoming the lingua franca. So the term tenor, I'm teaching English for no obvious reasons. There are people who are simply adding to the feather of the crown, English as being one of the additional languages. They may not need to, and they may not be, it's not necessary for them to learn this language. So there are some contextualized language teaching, like you may in your life, in a certain point of time, may be using as one of the languages somewhere, sometime while traveling, So more and more research and discussions are focusing on the issues of world Englishes, and instead of English being a lingua franca, the only dominant language. And I'm really apprehensive that in future, because of the AI integration to language teaching, and then we have Google coming up with suggestive language, predictive language, and even language curation and translation and transliteration and paraphrasing. So I say there is a real threat to the dominance of English as the only language spoken by majority of the people, and the need of the hour that used to be that unless you knew some amount of English, survival would be really hard, especially in those dominant English-speaking countries. So since Google is really coming up with some that's a bit distant from now, Lambda, and that Lambda is going to explore into the possibilities of how to have translation or transcript of as many languages as possible. Not only of the words or sentences, but also it's going to restructure, re-alter, and would suggest some of the, like Grammarly, these days we have Grammarly, that would definitely suggest you to how to come up with structure that fits well in, and removing the omissions or errors or grammatical errors, structures, at least improving the diction style of the. So there are so many, like Google Scholar, that also helps you to learn how to write better. So what I mean to say that, technology will intervene and will be a dominant force in not only modifying, not only affecting our mode of teaching and our approaches, and so the thing is, I mean, the perspectives need to be changed. And major trends in global ELT field, sub-international, arena, is being looked at in a different ways. Like we can have some kinds of categories of like globalization has left the usage of the language and the speech to script, or even the instant translation or instant transfer of terminologies into self-explainable paraphrases, and localization, interdisciplinary collaborations, and those kind of things are going to have major impact on our curriculum, our designing, and it's really going to matter how education technology is going to affect and facilitate learning, whether it's improving the performance by creating, using, and also inclusion of the curriculum or exclusion, or kind of only technology driven instructions. And there could be a possibility when we could have only technology driven instructions without the intervention of the humans. So it really matters whether we shifting to EdTech and replacement of traditional paper based methodology. It will have certain advantages and certain disadvantages. A disadvantage would be like those who are underprivileged, poor people, learners in the far-flung areas in the developing world and struggling nations. They will never have the equal chances of access to these collaborative high-tech education technology already. It could be as simple as our mobile phones or with internet facility that has been witnessed during the pandemic. Because I could see the predicament of those coming from rural areas from in India. I'm talking about in Indian context. Think of the African countries which remain isolated, where remain and most of the technology are still out of reach of the commoners. So I mean, mobile phones or laptops or with the internet facility, because most of the education technology, online distance learning, the prerequisite for their access to or your accessibility to them rests around mainly on only connectivity, and that too not the haphazard or a staggering connectivity, and assured kind of connectivity, a cost-effective connectivity. It's like e-learning. Let's say about e-learning. We experience sometimes the lagging connectivity, and there are some students. They may have a plausible explanation, excuse for not attending, not getting to, not listening to, and not having to, and then the learning process always gets affected or impeded, or EdTech benefits do not reach our doorsteps. So the thing is, teaching and learning process and the trends in the e-learning, or there are so many trends and new trends. I'm talking about not just e-learning, it's also online blended learning courses, then varieties of some of them video assisted learning, like you can just open the video links and you can have the video day. So television and are things of the past. We have instantaneous videos made. In fact, even we are talking about the blockchain technology coming into education technology, and this is going to benefit education, especially data storage. Like every time a new data is added, and it gets onto the storage in technically limitless aspects. We don't have to rummage through the library files and through the PDFs and all that. It will be encrypted, distributed, and think of the intelligentsia and the researches and journals and world-class journals, they will be stored across the multiple computers in the system, and transacting data would be decentralized and actually transparent. I mean, everyone would have access to without condition, and it would be like massive open online courses, MOOCs, and e-portfolios to verify skills and knowledges. So these kind of platforms are going to open up plethoras of opportunities for those who had been struggling to do researches in the real time and getting to hold of the ready material or research journals and articles, and we'll have to pay. I mean, most of the journal articles are still have to are still to be subscribed, and you have to dole out a certain amount. So the data is going to be bigger and bigger, and probably in future there won't be any physical libraries to visit. All the books will be transformed, and they will be into digitized form only. That will be cheaper and convenient, and I mean, it would be long lasting. I mean, you won't be losing it at all. Whether it's test results or the feedbacks or surveys or enrollment or course topics or curriculums across the interdisciplinary subjects. And when you talk of artificial intelligence, that's the in thing. I mean, US EdTech market is flooded with, and they're predicting that AI could become the primary trend and grow by more than 45%. That means our dependence is going to be phenomenal, and this is the trend is booming. In fact, the world's largest market of EdTech is this AI. Now, automatic basic activity in education like grading, auto grading, instantaneous course results, and teachers automated grading, multiple choices, fill in the blanks questions, automatic grading of students, even writing. It's not far behind the scene. I mean, it might come when, as I told you, that Google Scholar, then we have Grammarly, we have other kinds of tools and apps available, not only to suggest the rephrasing, paraphrasing, and the kind of simplistic structures in the chunks, and even they would look for all those kind of mechanical errors like clauses and sentences and phrases and cliche and those kind of, so AI tutors, when teachers are too busy, they will take over, and AI driven programs can give both learners, educators helpful feedback. I mean, we cannot rule out the invaluable contribution that AI and these tools are already offering to us. I'm also a good user of some of these apps, and I find it really convenient sometimes, although it has its limits. I must say that I've been trying to incorporate some of these apps. I tried Grammarly. Grammarly is a good device, and it's a good tool, but believe me, when it comes to sentences which multiple clauses with not just one main clause and one subordinate clause, the multiple main clauses and subordinate clauses, it fails to give you the right kind of feedback, and it suggests you on the basis of the length of the structure of the sentences. So it's not without pitfalls, and there are lots of lacunas with these apps. They need to be improved upon. As I told you that Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, he has recently announced that this lambda kind of thing is going to alter the very basics of how languages are, restructured, churn out, and how languages work, and how multilinguals and language across the boundaries, across the grammar structures, they're going to be embedded into a format which should instantly translate or give you an alternative in any language you want. I mean, not just 1, 2, 3. There'll be hundreds and hundreds of languages, not those dying languages which are vibrant and are still in usage. And so obviously the learner is going to get a lot of experience via AI, and AI is going to stay. I mean, and the current landscape of learning analytics is dramatically expanded, especially in the higher education, because when we talk of researches and original articles and students learning just on web, that means web and with your own domains and own specialized websites you can have. So it will have better understood and optimized learning, but I don't know how far teachers' role will be undermined or minimized, or our role will be as a in the back seats. We'll still be involved in not only improving the language, knowledge, skill acquisition, and we would be still be working as a facilitator. Will be more of a kind of giving a massive support from behind the scene, because at times when it comes to the creative writing or kind of real assistance and empathetic and getting to know the learning styles of the learner, and the crux of the situation will be when students find these apps not really helping out them in resolving the issues. So as educators, as teachers, as instructional design producers, we will be still working as an academicians, and our roles will be redefined, and because we'll have to work how best, how possibly we could make them realize to the fullest potential. Gamification is another big platform where I've already discussed in one of the videos about how Metaverse, the Facebook recent announcement, is going to alter the very thin boundary of virtual reality and reality, and how the real world and the virtual will be almost the same, and we could be landed into the world of gamifications. Because learning with fun is preferable for some certain section of the learners. So gamification is another suitable education technology trend, and there is no reason that this should not help in those disgruntled or uninterested students in getting involved, because it's fast, expedited, it's quite thrilling, and the kind of excitement you get with this kind of game practices, they work wonderfully well when especially when it gets boring and monotonous exercise in the textbook. And so we really have to get into this kind of AI, VR, AR, immersive learning experiences where you get quickly engaged, and gaming videos get higher scores. It's gone, and they improve the engagement level of learners. In order to maximize the learner's engagement to learning processes and assimilation processes, we can use VR, AR, immersive learning, the virtual reality, augmented reality, and the rise of the demand for experiential learning is really huge, and it's becoming more interactive than traditional method. Because when you put on the gadgets, VR and all, you're almost transported into that world, and you don't have to even think of that you are living in the real world with those kind of monotonous, uninspiring teacher. And if you don't like the teacher, you hate him, and you really curse on those teachers who happen to be after your blood to maximize output in one way or the other. So it's TeamBased program, all the new EdTech improvement of the STEM programs. This new trend of EdTech applies meaningful science, technology, engineering, and art. This is the new element, and not for English, but in math content we have to solve the real world problem through hands-on learning activities and creative design. So it's not just language learning. I mean, there are other areas where AI and virtuality VR are being at play to optimize our input. Then we have the social media learning. I mean, we're already into lots of social media platforms where we use Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and especially YouTube videos. I've been using lots of these video-based snippets and short videos. Using some of the social media platforms also, and they're really helping. Getting to interact, chat. Also to share their first-hand experience, maybe traveling, maybe what they have been doing, and there are students that would love to come, not only flaunt their recent achievements in the form of some of the remarkable feats or the kind of places they have been to, kind of activities they have been engaged in, or some kind of competitive level achievements they have been rewarded on. I mean, has to be some reward and punishment. I mean, reward and so this social media platform, they work wonderfully well in not only keeping your morale high and your excitement level really gushing, and you feel like you feel more animated learning. I mean, there are some kind of animated videos available, the viral videos, and we have TED Ed also, and where we have lots of good presenters, motivational speakers. They talk about different aspects of life, and they're ready-made solutions to getting to know some of the knowledge base. So social media is obviously going to stay and build a culture of collaboration and sharing, and that will definitely improve upon learning experience, not only for the learners but also for the practitioner teachers like me. So to conclude, I'll definitely in for, and despite being Luddite or being not so forthcoming to accepting the changes in the educational world, but it's definitely in for that we have to digest all those education technology trends creeping in, slowly, gradually coming in, and we have to keep in mind that technology has seeped into education and renewed its whole teaching world, and entire learning process being rediscovered, and we haven't invented a new wheel, but it's reinvented in the sense that our modes of learning, our modes of our desire for learning has increased, and it's a good news. In fact, it's easier for, and even part of this process of acquisition of the cognitive abilities or honing the skill of this critical thinking abilities and problem solving and real life situations, and our communication of the best, whether speaking or listening, good active listeners, or transferring the information as from one source to the other, or interpreting the kind of messages, underlying messages. So this is one way of bringing value to our learning and inspiring learners, make education more relevant and empowering, because gone are days when we used to have the bookish knowledge, and we used to have bookworms, and through rote learning you used to master certain skills and all. Now the thing is moving at a biblical scale, and we need to catch up with most of the recent trends in the field of social engineering, in the field of acquisition, the new skills, and getting to know the technology and keeping pace with all the changes to stay robust, not only in life but also in the job industry. Otherwise, we don't stand any chance, and we would be doomed if we can't compete with this ever-changing, ever-expansive world of where things are moving at such a fast pace, and maybe probably this planet is going to be not only the planet we will be living on, maybe moving to other planets. So when things are changing with such rocket speed, or we have to be prepared in our fields also to adopt, to collaborate, to assimilate, and to stay alert to the changes which may be desirable or undesirable. Thank you so much.